turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking. I'm gonna keep on talking. I'm gonna walking up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no senator turn me around. No, turn me around. No, turn me around. Gonna let no senator turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking. I'm gonna keep on talking, walking up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. No, turn me around. No, turn me around. No, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, walking up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no handcuffs turn me around. No, turn me around. No, no, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no handcuffs turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking. and tell our story. Let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. How justice was our battle and how justice was denied. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And say to those who blamed us for the way we chose to fight, that sometimes there are battles which are more than black or white. And I could not put down my sword when justice was my right. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Go out and tell your story to your daughters and your sons. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And tell them in our struggle we were not the only ones. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Your sword can be a sermon or the power of the pen. Teach every child to raise his voice, and then, my brothers, then will justice be demanded by 10 million righteous men. Make them hear you. When they hear you, I'll be near you. Again.
There's a great trouble in the land. We're gonna set it right again. There's a great trouble in the land. We're gonna set it right again. There's a great trouble in the land. We're gonna set it right again. We're gonna set it right. Set it right again. Trouble's been brewing too many years. We're gonna set it right again. Trouble's been brewing too many years. We're gonna set it right again. Trouble's been brewing too many years. We're gonna set it right again. We're gonna set it right. Set it right again. People need healing all over the world. We're gonna set it right again. People need healing all over the world. We're gonna set it right again. People need healing all over the world. We're gonna set it right again. We're gonna set it right. Set it right again. We need clean water and healthy food. We're gonna set it right again. We need clean water and healthy food. We're gonna set it right again. We need clean water and healthy food. We're gonna set it right again. We're gonna set it right. Set it right again. We must have housing, we've a right to thrive. We're gonna set it right again. We must have housing, we've a right to thrive. We're gonna set it right again. We must have housing, we've a right to thrive. We're gonna set it right again. We're gonna set it right. set it right again. There's a great trouble in the land. We're gonna set it right again. Oh, there's a great trouble in the land. We're gonna set it right again. There's a great trouble in the land. We're gonna set it right again. We're gonna set it right again. We're gonna set it right again. We're gonna set it right again.
5, 6, 7, 8. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. And before this campaign fails, we'll all go down to jail. Everybody's got a right to.
Hello, everybody. This is Bishop William Joseph Barber II, one of the co-chairs of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. I am the president, senior lecturer of Repairs of the Breach, and we're here with our powerful friends who will be introducing themselves along the way. Tonight is a night for this national virtual Get Out to Vote rally and revival, mobilizing, organizing, registering, educating, a movement that votes. And we welcome all of you. Now, in some places, early voting is wrapping up, and it'll be wrapped up by Saturday. So, and then after that, we have what's called Election Day. And then we have Friday and Saturday and Sunday for mosques and synagogues and pulpits to light the country on fire with prophetic truth. We have all of the various opportunities to continue to unleash our power. Voting is power unleashed. Not voting is power left out of the atmosphere, left out of the process. And we don't just vote, we vote, we educate, we litigate, we legislate, we even engage in times of civil disobedience, we protest, we preach, we stand. We believe in using every tool, and every nonviolent tool that is at our disposal in order to fight for the soul, the heart of this democracy, and refuse to allow it to be an impoverished democracy without us fighting back. We're not on our watch. Tonight, I want you to hear this. I'm going to talk less and let others talk and let you hear. But there's one phrase that I picked up last night from the Poor People's Campaign in North Carolina as they were discussing what to do, and some people were bemoaning the fact of where we are. And they were basically saying we cannot be discouraged when we see sometimes the politics and the pundits and the portraits and the polls and things on TV not lifting up the issues that we care about. Yet we are still building. But what we have to do is hold on and recognize that every step is another step. Every building block, every round goes higher. And you're going to hear some fabulous numbers tonight that are not an end, but a beginning. But they said last night, I think it was Joyce Johnson, she said, we must learn how to cast fearless votes. Fearless votes. Votes where we vote, and if our votes put into office people that carry our agenda, then after they get elected, we push them to finalize that agenda. If we vote and our candidate doesn't get into office, we still push those people who get elected because we cast fearless votes. We don't do one election and then quit because everything didn't work. we cast fearless votes. Our votes are a sign of our humanity, as a sign that we recognize the right to choose is not something that America gave us, but that God, the divine, granted unto us. The right to vote is something people fought for and died for and bled for. The right to vote is our way of one way that we protest and we promulgate what we believe in. And so we cast, write that down, fearless votes. We engage during the election season, and then after the election season, we continue to agitate and litigate and legislate. But I talked to Liz Theo Harris, and she told me some years ago, she said, you know, getting people to vote is like hiring as many ambulance drivers as you can find, so that even in their votes, they are sounding the alarm that we are in an emergency state and we cannot accept where things are. Now, Ms. Yara Allen is here, and this song, I want you to know, they sung it when they didn't even see possibility for victory the next day. They sung it when sometimes they had been beaten down and beaten back. They sung it when they didn't know exactly what to do, but they knew one thing they couldn't do, and that was let go. They knew they couldn't let go. They knew they couldn't turn back. They knew that telling the truth in a time of lies is revolutionary in and of itself, and holding on when the forces of injustice try to break your spirit is a must, You must hold on to what you believe. You must hold on to your faith. You must hold on to your commitment. You must hold on to your love. You must hold on to your truth. You must hold on in every situation. And so tonight, Yara, as you reach back on this week that we celebrate the ancestors, All Saints Week, I want you to grab a hold of Fannie Lou Hamer's hand, and grab a hold of Jonathan Reed's hand, and grab a hold of Mother Jones's hand, and grab a hold of Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman and Sojourner's hand, and grab a hold of Dorothy Day's hand, and grab a hold of Lucretia Mott's hand, and all of the people that have come before us that had to hold on and sing to us tonight until we make it clear nothing will ever break our grip on justice and love and mercy and truth.
Thank you, Bishop Barber. And indeed, if we ever needed to vote, we sure do need to vote now. If we ever needed to hold on, pray on a little while longer, if we ever needed to vote just a little bit stronger, we sure do need to do that now. Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Whoa, hold on just a little while longer. I know victory is coming soon. Pray on just a little while longer. Pray on just a little while longer. Oh, pray on just a little while longer. I know victory is coming soon. Vote on just a little bit stronger. Vote on just a little bit stronger. Vote on just a little bit stronger. I know victory is coming soon. Fight on just a little while longer. Fight on just a little while longer. Fight on just a little while longer. I know victory is coming soon. Come on and hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Yeah, hold on just a little while longer. I know, we know victory is coming soon.
That's it. And the first victory is in your imagination. You got to imagine something different, believe in something different, have a counter narrative before we have a counter reality. And the second victory is your adversaries being clear by your action that you're not just going to accept what is going on. In fact, you might even change some of them in the process of standing, but you're not going to just lay down and roll over. And then the third victory is when you actually see things you fought for come into being, and you don't get to choose when that's going to happen. What you get to choose is stand and believe and vote and fight and struggle in your time. But ultimately, when the final victories come, is in the process. Just get in, but we must get in the process. Nobody knows that better than the Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris, who's both the president, executive director of the Kairos Center, tremendous New Testament scholar that this world needs so much in this time. And she's going to kind of frame for us why would we have a revival tonight, a rally. I remember Liz in the movie Glory. They had this circle. You remember in that movie, Denzel was on it. And I mean, he was playing a part, and they all got in the circle. And they knew that probably the next day they were going to lose a lot of people. But they and I hope my passive friends don't get mad at me. I'm just trying to give an image here, because we're in an army, but it's a nonviolent army. And they sung themselves, and they encouraged themselves until they were willing to stand. And there was a line in there that said, there comes a time we just got to ante up. There comes a time we got to ante up. And we may not see the fullness of the victory, but I certainly want to be a part of helping to bring that victory to pass. And victory here, we're talking about public policy victories and transformation in this country. Liz talked to the folk this evening about why we are having this national GOTV, Get Out the Vote Rally and Revival tonight.
That's right. And there's no place to be but here with the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival. Because we know that voting is power unleashed. We know that, as we have been saying, if there ever was a time to vote for justice and democracy and truth and love, that time to vote is now. And that we know that the power to transform the entire political landscape in this, the richest country in the world that has 140 million people who are poor or one small emergency away from absolute economic ruin, that power to transform that landscape is in the hands, it's in the votes of poor and low-income people all across this country. The issues that are most important to the daily lives of the majority of people in this country, they're on the ballot this election. People are hurting. The federal minimum wage hasn't been raised since 2009. Healthcare has not been significantly expanded after the worst public health crisis in a century. Economic supports that began during the COVID-19 pandemic, stuff like the stimulus checks, the child tax credit, the pandemic unemployment assistance, they've all expired. And that these cuts have thrusted millions, tens of millions of people, including lots of children, back below that poverty line. But we know that that does not have the last word. That is not the end. Because we know by participating in these midterm elections and in participating in future elections and organizing and mobilizing and registering and engaging people, we the people have the power to lift from the bottom so that everybody rises. I'm a biblical scholar as well as a mom and an anti-poverty activist and a pastor. And I often will look to our sacred texts to hear what they have to say about the political power of the people. You know, we can go back to the Exodus, where the Hebrew people are crossing the Red Sea out of Egypt from slavery. They're rejecting the oppression, the mistreatment of Pharaoh and empire, and they're marching on, just like we are marching to the polls for freedom. In Leviticus and Deuteronomy, it establishes policies and procedures to lift people up so that justice isn't left to the whims of ruling authorities, but they're passed down generation to generation, always centering the needs of the people. We hear the prophets throughout our Bible cry out to God, direct warnings and protests to those with power and wealth to do justice, like it says in Micah, or to not shed innocent blood, as Jeremiah reminds, to hate evil and love good, as Amos tells us, and to stop depriving the poor of their rights, as it says in Isaiah 10. And throughout the New Testament, Jesus celebrates the interventions of poor farmers and fisher people, poor but persistent women, and those who have been denied healing but insist that change is coming soon, and in the power of the people, especially those that have been marginalized socially and politically and economically, but still are making their and our voices heard. So this evening, those of us that are gathered representing that 140 million poor and low-income people, that 1/3 of the electorate, we are going to keep on marching, we're going to keep on singing, and we're going to make sure we keep on voting on to unlock our power and to declare that victory indeed is ours. Victory in living wages, victory in environmental protections, victory in lifting the poor out of poverty, victory in healthcare and immigrant rights and LGBTQ rights and the right to thrive and not just barely survive. And so it is an honor to be here with people and to be connecting with poor and low-income people all across this country in states everywhere who are, as we've heard from folks in our Poor People's Campaign, are battling in battleground states, not because it's just about that one election, but because people are engaged in battles every day for our lives. And so we are going to keep on fighting, and we're going to make sure that we and everyone we know, especially poor and low-income people, vote, if not in early voting, on Election Day this November 8th. And so, Bishop Barber, it is a power to be with this group of people here in the numbers as we march on towards justice and victory.
Thank you so much, sis. I say sis tonight, Sister Liz. I'll put the sister on you. But you know, it's true. And see, the thing about it is, I asked somebody, how many times do you fight to keep people alive when you see policies killing them? That should be an unending fight. We may not win everything with one election, but we're gonna win. We're gonna win and keep fighting. We're gonna keep standing. You know, if somebody doesn't raise your living wages for 13 years and you don't vote, then that makes them think you okay. Mm-hmm. If somebody doesn't, if policy is the only way you can get health care for everybody, and 87 million people don't have health care or they're uninsured, and then if we sit home and don't vote, then they say, well, you really don't mean what you say. You really don't want it. I mean, it's sad to say that, but that's how people think. And we're not blaming poor and low welfare. What we're saying is time for us to take our rightful place in this democracy. And what we're saying is people spend so much time discouraging. I mean, when's the last time you've heard that if 4% of poor and low wealth people voted in Florida didn't vote the last time, they could determine every election? You don't see anybody running an ad on that because they don't want you to know that. What 1% in Michigan, 19% in North Carolina, 7% in Georgia. So, but there comes a time you have to know that you know that you know. You have to know what your power is. I love that story when David went out to Goliath and Goliath announces his power. I'm a giant. David said, that's exactly right. But you're uncircumcised giant. And I don't come to you in my name. I come to you in the name of the Lord. And I got these 5 little votes here, 5 of them. I ain't going to use but one of them. I got 5, but I'm going to use one of them. And with this slingshot, I'm getting ready to vote that you stop terrorizing my people. And if you think about it that way, then we got to keep on and keep on and keep on and holding our faith. Nothing is one time. It's not one time and quit. It's one time and another time and another time. And that's why on June 18th, even though people said we couldn't do it, they said it wouldn't happen. We were supposed to do it on the 2020, the Mass Poor People's Low Wage Workers Assembly Moral March on Washington to the polls. And COVID hit. And our advisors told us it would have been immoral for us to call poor people into the streets to march and risk getting COVID, particularly in a society where poor and low wealth people and essential workers were already not receiving the kind of protections that they needed. 330,000 people died not from COVID, but from the lack of health care. And so we kept working. We went virtual and then we went public. And we knew that it might not be, and that people were still dealing with COVID, but 150,000+ people filled the streets from 3rd Street, Pennsylvania, all the way down to 14th Street. And millions joined us online. And we made a declaration that day. We won't be silent anymore. We showed America the faces and the voices of those of us who have committed to fight and stand for what's right until we no longer have breath in our body, because we will not accept an impoverished democracy as a have-to-be reality. People declared their truths. They declared they would vote. They declared they would stand. They declared they would march. Clergy, impacted people, allies came together, and we laid out a 14-point agenda for the healing of this nation. And then we said there were 7 things we were going to do. And one of those things was we were going to massively touch, motivate, and call for poor and low wealth voters who sometimes have given up in the face of so much negativity and regression. And God knows I understand it. I say regression is like arthritis when I fight. It just makes you want to lay down. But then every morning you got to fight to get back up one more time. And so I want us to be reminded for a moment of what we did together, what the world saw. And by the way, this is not the last time. I really believe 2024, we're going to have massive again. But for now, remember June 18th, the Mass Poor People's Low Wage Workers Assembly Moral March on Washington to the polls, and hear the cry that was lifted for the world on June 18th and why we can't turn back now.
Time for a third reconstruction. We are the rejected who've been rejected by the politics of trickle-down economics and rejected by neoliberalism. Until children are protected, until sick folk are healed, until low-wage workers are paid, until immigrants are treated fairly, until affordable houses are provided, until the atmosphere, the land, and the water are protected, until saving the world and diplomacy and living in peace is more important than blowing up the world. We won't be silent anymore. If we've got to march, we'll march. If we've got to engage in nonviolent direct action, we'll engage. If we've got to give more attention with the media, if we have to ask workers to make election day a labor strike day, we'll do it. But until then, we won't be silent or unseen or unheard
Somebody hurting our families, and it's going on. But we won't be silent anymore. Did you hear?
Hope comes from the bottom, from by the profound evils of America. It's the poor. It's the low wage. It's the locked up, looked over, and left out. It's those excluded and exploited who are the very social force who can change this society.
We're calling upon those who have ears to hear, tongues to speak, and hearts to respond, to join the movement to rid this nation of the evil and violence of poverty.
I have been struggling to pay my bills since I've been working at 16 years old. I work full-time 64 hours a week, 7 days a week. I am exhausted.
As a teacher, I want a better future and planet for our children by addressing gun violence and working together to solving our climate crisis.
Our government finds it necessary to ban abortion, to say that they are saving our children. But more children die as a result of poverty in this country.
I'm here because I'm holding fast to that promise of freedom that our ancestors fought for. They were fighting for our ability to control our own bodies, to determine our own futures, to be the architects of our own destinies. And that's the fight that we're fighting right now.
This system doesn't provide health care or living wages, but it wages chemical warfare.
We should not be cornered and forced to choose one necessity over another.
There are poor and homeless veterans all over this country. We must stand together to demand an end to this war economy that benefits the wealthy at the cost of poor people's lives and health.
I am here to tell you, incarcerated lives matter too.
This is the consequences that we face. So what our people say is that we are fighting the oldest evil.
Our votes this November are not a show of support. They are a demand.
We are here. We are the poor and dispossessed, and we are here.
Yeah, now is our time for a third Reconstruction. We are not an insurrection, but we are a resurrection.
Adelante juntos. Adelante juntos. Ni un paso atrás.
And all of you listening, you can still go to poorpeoplescampaign.org and you can click on that to make your way to continue to move and motivate people to the polls. But listen, what did Mary Kay Henry say? Our votes are not support, they are demands. This is not a game for us. What did our brother Winslow say? We fighting the evils of injustice. We pull no punches. We pull no punches. Because we can't afford to. The people that you just heard can't afford to. And we don't just complain. We look at the diversity, y'all, who are listening in. Because we're not just talking to ourselves tonight. We're talking to some of you who may be seeing this movement for the first time. Look at the diversity. Look at the voice. It's not just Reverend Liz and me and a few other people. This is a movement of people who've decided to give everything we have nonviolently to the transformation of this country, this society, because there are things that are just not right. They should not even exist in anywhere near us in the wealthiest country. They exist in the world, but certainly in the wealthiest country in the nation. Now, Charlie Gupta Barnes, who is policy director at the Kairos Center and policy with the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, you know, her and many other people have worked with this, putting together this 14-point agenda that we talked about early on. One of the things I said to Ms. Barnes is, look, a movement must have its own agenda and its own budget, so that when you plan for people to criticize. So when they say, well, it's going to cost too much, we say, yeah, look at what it costs if you don't do it. Well, how do you fix it? Here, you plan that, and we've done that. But tonight, she wants to introduce a video. It's about 12 minutes. But it's worth you hearing because it's not us, it's the people impacted who are laying out very clearly why we vote and what we're voting for, because our votes are not support, they are about demands. They really are. And those of you who are politicians and others, you need to listen to this very clearly. And those of you who are listening, you need to push this out far and wide, because these are the things that you will hear in a minute that should be the reason that drives us to the polls. Dr. Barnes.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Barber. Thank you, everyone who's been part of this push to the polls for many, many months now. These demands, they also did not come out of nothing. They came out of the realities and the conditions and the struggles that poor and low-income people have been waging in this country for years, for decades, in some cases for generations. And so in this next video, we're going to hear from state leaders and from faith leaders who are part of this campaign, who have been a part of this campaign, about the issues around which we're bringing people together, issues like voting rights and healthcare, and all of the planks of this third Reconstruction agenda. So I don't have much else to say. I think we just turn right to the video.
Hello, hello, hello. My name is Shauna Love, and I am from Columbus, Georgia. And we're facing widespread poverty here, just like 140 million people are across the country, people of every race, age, gender identity, and faith. That's why we are demanding that our politics and policies center the poor. If we ever needed to vote for democracy and justice, we sure do need to vote now. Thank you for your vote.
My name is Teresa Muldrow, and I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've been fighting for wages and benefits for women and other caregivers for years. There are 30 million wage workers who earn less than $15 per hour, among them millions of paid caregivers. And there are many millions more mothers and others who are unpaid caregivers. That's why we are demanding a federal minimum wage of at least $15 an hour for all, a guaranteed adequate income, and a care income for all caregivers of people and the planet. The expanded child tax credit raised 3.7 million children out of poverty in 2021, but Congress has refused to reinstate it and make it permanent this year. That's why if we ever needed to vote for democracy and justice, we sure do need to vote now.
My name is Wayne, and I'm from Clinton, Wisconsin, which is a rural part of the state. I've had all kinds of health issues in my life, but I couldn't afford the kind of care that I needed. Meanwhile, healthcare and pharmaceutical companies are making all kinds of profits off of our pain. Our healthcare system is the most expensive in the world, but it doesn't provide world-class care for most of us. That's why we're demanding universal single-payer healthcare and also fair taxation on those companies, Wall Street, and the wealthy. If we ever needed to vote for democracy and justice, we need to vote now.
I'm Rabbi Jill Jacobs, the CEO of Truah, an organization that brings together more than 2,300 rabbis and cantors from the US and Canada, from across all denominations of Judaism, to work for human rights, for dignity, for equality, and for justice for all people, as all of us are equally creations in the divine image. Our whole society suffers under the weight of crushing inequality. Hundreds of people in this country die every day as a result of widespread poverty. That's why we demand policies that guarantee that everyone has the right to live and to thrive. If we ever needed to vote for democracy and justice, we sure do need to vote now.
Hi, I'm Claire Hostetler, an ordained Mennonite minister and hospice chaplain, and I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. Our Ohio state legislature is going against the will of most Ohioans on voting rights, reproductive rights, and gun violence, and voter suppression has become one of their most effective tactics. Ohio is one of about a dozen states that introduced or passed voter suppression laws in 2021 and 2022. And that's why we demand that the 1965 Voting Rights Act be restored and updated so that we have the right to participate in the decisions that impact our lives. If we ever needed to vote for democracy and justice, we sure do need to vote now.
Namaste. My name is Sunita Vishwanath, and I'm with Hindus for Human Rights, which provides a Hindu voice for peace, justice, and truth. Mahatma Gandhi said that health is the only real wealth, but there are nearly 15 million people who will lose their access to health care when the federal pandemic emergency relief ends. And now, millions of people are going to face barriers to reproductive rights that will threaten their lives. That's why we demand a universal, single-payer national health care system for all, and reproductive rights no matter your income, ability, gender, documentation, carceral status, or pre-existing conditions. If we ever needed to vote for democracy and justice, we sure need to vote now.
Hello, I'm Calvin Stewart from Rolling Fork, Mississippi. We've been having issues with our water, our housing, and our utilities for years before this most recent disaster. Across this great country, there are millions of people who cannot afford the basic needs. That's why we must demand universal access to water, housing, and utilities for everyone. If there was a time that we needed to vote for democracy and justice, it is now. Somebody's been hurting my state, my people, for far too long, and we won't be silent anymore.
My name is Anama Al-Jabali, and I'm from the southwest suburbs of Illinois and a leader in the Poor People's Campaign. My family came to America as immigrants. We are refugees from Palestine, home to Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. In the Muslim faith, education is one of the most cherished values and deeply important to me as a mother of 5. I know our public schools aren't funded enough to provide what our children need, and even today, millions of people are still burdened by student debt. This is why we demand quality, equitable, and diverse public education, from PK to college, and full relief for these debts. If we ever needed to vote for democracy and justice, we sure do need to vote now.
Hola, my name is Julio Acosta, and I am in Tawakani land, also known as Dallas, Texas. Immigrants in Texas are facing intense policy violence, from family separation to racist profiling, poverty, and now attacks on our access to public education. Nearly 1,000 migrants will die at the border this year alone. This is why we demand immigration policies that prioritize our families and allow us to live full, decent lives in this country, and that the southern border be demilitarized. If we ever needed to vote for democracy and justice, we sure do need to vote now. A votar, mi gente.
Hi, my name is April Obi Bowling. I am of the Quileute Nation from La Push, Washington. We have been fighting for our sacred lands and other promises made to our ancestors for generations, alongside other tribes and First Nations across this country. We need more than a day that is named in our honor. We demand that our rights as indigenous people are fully protected and treaty obligations made to our people are respected. If we ever needed to vote for democracy and justice, we need to do that now and vote. Our young generation is our future, and we need to protect our rights as indigenous people, and we need to vote, and we need to vote now.
My name is Sister Ramona, and I'm a deaconess in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. One of our central teachings is the Christian call to be a peacemaker and to strive for alternatives to war and the proliferation of violence. However, over the past 20 years, this nation has spent over $21 trillion on war, militarizing the border, prisons, surveillance, and a war economy. This is why we demand that our government prioritize peace over war. reduce military spending, and redirect those resources to what our communities need. If we ever needed to vote for democracy, peace, and justice, we sure do need to vote now.
My name is Reverend Joan Javier Duval, and I'm a Unitarian Universalist faith leader with the Vermont Poor People's Campaign. Even though Vermont is considered a progressive state, we are not immune from the violence of white supremacy and religious nationalism. This is why we demand that our laws and policies be based first and foremost on constitutional principles to establish justice. If we ever needed to vote for democracy and justice, we sure do need to vote now.
Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Angela Smalls, and I am currently living in Gastonia, North Carolina. I am a single mother of 3, a PCA, plus I work at Labor Finders. It has come to my knowledge of how I am impacted by this. The cost of housing inflation, also as well as utilities, insurance, clothes, and food. Everything is expensive. And there are millions of other people like me in the state of North Carolina, and millions and millions and millions of people across this country. We all need the same things, our necessities: food, clothes, shelter, transportation, jobs with better wages. All of this matters. That's why I'm voting this year for an agenda and a movement where we can build our power together as one. If we ever needed to vote for justice, because all lives do matter, not just blue and blacks, all lives matter. And democracy, especially democracy, for our next generation to come, our children, please vote. We sure do need to vote.
Hello, my name is Malik Gary. I'm from Tallahassee, Florida. Our state has been devastated by the pandemic and now again from the storms and extreme weather events. These two crises are related because our poorest communities are hit first. But we are last in line for recovery assistance. This is why we demand adequate treatment for COVID-19, which is still hitting us in our communities hard today, and for a climate agenda that will put us first. If you ever needed to show up to the polls, it will be now. To vote for democracy, to vote for justice, to vote for your health care, to vote for your mind, to vote for freedom. It is all on the ballot. Show up at the polls because we need you to help us make a difference at the ballot box.
I want you to hear how serious those folks sounded. It's not a game. And we have to be the first to show America it's not a game. We can't have a state where 1 million poor and low wealth people, 80% of who are already registered, just decide, I'm not going to vote. And then when things go wrong, we get mad. I've said that in my state because that's what happened. Now, I understand a lot of poor and low wealth folks said they didn't vote because nobody talks to them. And I get that. You can get discouraged. You can even get depressed. You know, I understand that. It wasn't first voter suppression, and some people don't have transportation, and we got to do better. But I also understand from my personal life, and some of you understand this. I remember when I went into depression dealing with this disease when they told me I'd never walk again, 30 years old. And I'm telling you, I cried. I got mad at the world. I wanted to slink away. I wanted to just give up. I thought about it. When pain medicine, none of it could touch it, Liz, Charlotte. Every needle only seemed like made the pain worse. I thought about all of that, even not living. But there came a point And thank God for some people who visited me, who said, you got another choice. And that is to live and not die. And to fight back with what you have and make a difference. You know, if those folk hadn't come in my room, Sharon and Kate, I wouldn't know you today. I wouldn't be hearing those powerful folk that we just heard. If I hadn't had that dream where an amputated angel, I like to call her, visited me in a dream and said, you better get yourself up from here. And if you got to limp, you better limp for justice. If you got to crawl. But how dare you allow a system to take you out that's been wanting to take you out a long time, and then you assist it in the process by just quitting? I wouldn't know you, y'all. I wouldn't know Cash. I wouldn't know all of the folk. And that same thing has to happen in our political lives and our movement lives. Every movement has had to face times of overwhelming odds, times of lies. But you know, the people who end up making a difference and changing it are the folk that say, if I've got to make a choice, I make the choice to struggle. I make the choice to fight. I make the choice to stand. And I'm going to hook up with other folk so that if I get a little tired and feel like crying and quitting, they can help me up. But what I'm not going to do is be silent, stay out of the fight, walk away, let folk have it. This land is our land. This land is your land. You know, Langston Hughes in a poem called America Has Never Been America to Me, but I swear this oath that America will be. And he said, all of us must come together and take back our mighty land again. He declared that in the midst of that, we cannot sit out. And so it's our time, y'all. It is our time. Every generation has its own Edmonds Pettus Bridge, and that is a place where you get beat down, and then you've got to decide to get up. And you know, sometimes, like on the Edmonds Pettus Bridge, they didn't win. They didn't have a vote. They changed the context of the society. People were already in office. They just made it so they had to vote. And how dare them win then? And we sit back now. We have this power, but it's only power if we use it. We got to make people feel it, hear it. There's a song we used to sing in the Moral Monday movement, Liz, make them hear you. There comes a time you got to stop saying they aren't hearing me and make them hear you. Make them hear you. This is as real as it gets. And you don't get to do it one time and then quit. They want us to do that, one election and then quit. So Kate and Sig are getting ready to come on because we've done something, you've done something that has never been done before in the history of this country that we know of. COVID is still real, so we can't do everything we like to do the way we would normally canvass and go into people's houses. But you all said, wait a minute. We said we weren't going to be silent anymore. Harriet Tubman got 700 people out of slavery. She didn't have Twitter, tweet, and emails, and voting programs and portals and all that stuff. Sally, you can help me with the names that we have. All she had was moss on the north side of the tree, a North Star, a made-up mind, dreams that sometime would warn her. And I'd be doggone if I'm going to let Harriet Tubman. I love Miss Harriet, but I'm not going to live and then get to heaven and see Harriet, and Harriet's going to be able to brag that she did more with less than we did with more. That'd be an insult to Harriet. And we could go on and on. down the line. So you all said, what can we do? And you put this movement mindset together with modern day technology. And tonight we're going to show you what you've done. We aren't through now. We're not getting happy like it's over. And some of what we've done, this is the first time, it's a new thing. We had some bumps in the road, but we'll correct that. And I want to say to that to folk, because sometimes people make perfection the enemy of great. Anything you do, you're going to have to adjust it. Every movement has had to grow. But we've got a way of doing things now we can build upon it. I can't imagine, Kate, when we can both be in the street and on doors without COVID, or at least protected, and with this technology. And what we have done happened in 50 days. I can't imagine what we're going to be able to do if we take a whole year and use this same time. And we did it with 1,000 volunteers. And we're getting ready to go back through and look at what we can do better, what we can do. But for right now, Kate and Sig, who are national organizing chairs with Repairs of the Breach and then the national leaders for the Poor People's Campaign, I want you to give us a report out of how many folk we touched, because we said we were going to do it. And this model that we have laid down that we'll be able to use in the days to come. But it is absolutely, it's not the end of the war. It's not the end of the battle. We got some looking to do. We didn't do everything exactly right, but God knows what we did do right. And what we tried to do has never been done before, with a specific target at low propensity, poor and low wealth voters, with the metrics and the data of what difference could be made if this population turned. Let me just say, when this population turns. So would y'all talk a little bit about that, and why we couldn't hear what those stories we just heard, and why you can't say it's bad and then sit down. If it's bad, you got to stand up. If it's not right, you got to fight to change it. And this is just one aspect and one way that we are letting this society know we are not playing. We're not mean. We're not insurrectionists. We're not violent, but we ain't playing. And we intend to build the kind of movement and continue to build it to see change come. Talk to us a little bit tonight, Kate and Sig.
Thanks, Reverend Barber. As Bishop was saying, we've been doing a lot of really incredible work from the bottom up in all of our states. And we have over 40 coordinating committees that across the country have been mobilizing and organizing. I'm going to talk a little bit about this one part of our final 50-day push that we started on September 19th, which was called "If We Ever Needed to Vote for Democracy and Justice, We Sure Do Need to Vote Now." We have not just been doing this GOTV season, we are building off of the work that the campaign has been doing since it launched, and also building off of the work that we started in the 2020 election season, where we were reaching out to low income and low propensity potential voters. And this year we have identified 15 strategic states. If you could put up actually the other slide first. You can see here on the screen next to me that we identified states as strategic priorities, which doesn't mean that there isn't great suffering and poverty happening in every single state that we're organizing in, but these are states that reflect a high percentage of low-income potential voters who turned out in 2020, and it has a high percentage of low-income voters as a percentage of the overall electorate.
Now let me go a little street, which I want you to say that number again. You didn't say that 5 million, right? You can't say that kind of monotone. You just can't do that. I just built that up by how great. You got to say, we went after 5,504,723 votes. People, low propensity vote, who've not been traditionally touched, that the political system is not touching, that they're not moving it. And we chose 15 states because if these states change, everything changes. You know, it's like you don't have to change everything. You got to find. It's like in dominoes. Dominoes. you got to, if you pull the right one, the rest of it falls, right? And so I just want y'all to say that, you know, with look, because you know, that's nothing to, you know, if we don't say it right, people say, oh, they just, no, 5 million. All right, I'm gonna be jumping in sometime when I need to do a little push. All right, come on, let's go.
All right. Well, as Bishop was saying, it is a huge amount of people that we have reached. We have texted in a 50-day period 5,504,723 low income and low propensity voters. And this is huge. This is work that is historic. In 2020, we texted 2.1 million low income and low propensity voters in the same amount of time. And that work was also incredible. So the scale of which with volunteers, over 1,000 people every single day, 7 days a week on many events every day have been texting and reaching out to this extremely important voting bloc, this part of the electorate, which has the power to change this country. And so 5,500,000 people is an incredible amount of people and over double what we reached out to in our 2020 We Must Do More Get Out the Vote program.
And doesn't that mean too that not only were they text, but with our agenda, and they also got other things, emails they got where they can come in and learn about the campaign, they can be a part of it. And that includes our canvassing, that also includes other things that are being done. I want people to get, this is not just somebody sitting down, like, you know, just doing some simple text. It's very sophisticated. As I said, it may not be perfect, but it's a way to do it that you're actually teaching more and more people about the movement. And this is incredible. What else do we do? Come on.
Sig, would you like to share a little bit of the work that we've been doing on the ground in the States?
Sure. So we've been building our movement on the ground by directly talking to poor and low wealth and low propensity voters. We've been slowly returning COVID safely to the streets. We've had 2 national days of canvassing. And like I said, we've been in the streets. We've been going door to door in our neighborhoods, at shopping centers, laundromats, to fairs, festivals, community gatherings, and houses of worship. We've been passing out tens of thousands of flyers, postcards, door hangers, putting out radio ads, billboards to try to reach poor, low wealth, and low propensity voters wherever we could. And what we've learned is that so few people were talking about the issues that mattered most to poor and low wealth people, and how important it is to exercise their right to vote that so many fought so hard to win, to restore, and to protect. And like a weaver starts with spinning just one single thread, all of our volunteers, our workers have been out in their communities talking to one person, one congregation, knocking on one door at a time to wake the sleeping giant of the poor and low wealth electorate. And that has swelled to on the ground outreach in 30 states across the country, 143 different cities, towns, and counties with over 310 outreach activities. That's just as this week, and we're not done yet. And together as a movement, we're weaving every single thread, every single person, every conversation, weaving across lines of division, identities, and states to restore the moral fabric of this country. And we won't be silent or unheard anymore, because we are a new unsettling force and we are voting.
And Sig, you know, one of the things is, even as we reach back to that phrase, we're a new unsettling force, let's reach to the phrase we use, we are third Reconstruction. Because part of what we must do is not only claim from the past, we got to own what we are in the present, right? We are forward together, not one step back. We are the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival in this moment. And we've gotten testimonies of people crying. I got a couple today. Some of our folk went to their doors and they literally broke down and cried and said, nobody has ever talked to me in the last 15, 20 years. And I want to say that to the family as you're down here, because sure, you know, somebody might say, well, we didn't do this, but you know what? You start where you are, you try, you may get better, but don't ever, always take time to acknowledge and lift up what you have done, even as we think about, but the more we have to do. This is incredible. I know you said 30-some states, 100 and some different cities. Yes, the day will come when that number is 1,000. But a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. The Bible says, despise not small beginnings. Don't do that. And so this is huge, incredible. Let's walk through these states, some of them, because there's some numbers here that literally, when I was reading them, they literally blew my mind in terms of what I do is when I see these, I look at what's next, like, what does this set you up for? Now, Zig, Bishop, I used to hustle pool. I'm sorry. I got to tell the truth on the whole national TV. But then when you hustle, when you play pool, you make a shot, but you're thinking about 3 shots later, right? So I'm thinking about not only all the folk you touch, but when we start mobilizing for other things, what this technology, what this effort allows us to do. So for instance, Arizona, 210,000 people, specifically poor, low wealth, low wage, and low propensity voters. Nobody else is focused on that, right? And I want you to show you something about Arizona. In Arizona, the margin of victory in the last presidential race, is that right, was 2010. This effort we reached, we were only 1,000 less than the margin, close than the margin. In other words, for all the folk we touched were to vote and vote their agenda, their principles, there would be almost enough people to close the gap in the last presidential race. That's a huge model, right, for transformation. Let's look at some more. I'm gonna stop you along the way. Come on. Wow, go to the next one. I want to see the margin. Ooh, wow, look at that, look at that. Margin of victory, 700,000. Percentage reached by text is 218,912. All right, the average margin of victory. Go to 731,000 reached in Georgia. 731,785. 731,700. Go back to Florida for a second, because that's a little bit deceptive right there, because there was a Senate race that the margin of victory was much closer than that. And we want to check that, because I don't think that the president won by no 700,000 votes in Florida. So we're going to check that. Okay. I know the Senate race was far closer than that. Go to North Carolina. Go to North Carolina. Just show me the numbers right now. Just show me the number of persons we got. Like 718,717. Those are the folk we reached by text. Now, don't put the other up there, Spark. I know that the margin of victory in North Carolina in the presidential race was under 200,000 votes. I know that. And in 2016, the margin of victory for governor wasn't but 10,000 votes. And the margin of victory for the chief justice wasn't but 600 votes. In this effort, the number of residents reached by text, 718,000. We noted in North Carolina, there were 1 million poor and low wealth voters who did not vote in the last election. And if we just reached 19% of those, that would have been larger than the margin of victory in that state. This is huge when we look at the number of people that touched in the state. And we know there's a major battle going on that's going to probably be decided in North Carolina by probably 10 or 20,000 votes. And we reached 718,717. Do one more and then I want to stop. One more state, not the margin of victory. Just give me go do Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, go back, Pennsylvania, we reached 614,991 low-income voters, low propensity voters. Now, in 2020, when there was an election, the margin of victory for the president was under 100,000 votes. Am I right? It was under 100,000 votes. Under 100,000 votes. And here in this effort, we see where We reached 614,000 now, 614,000 votes. My point is, I want folk to understand that this is serious work, metric-driven work, but work where we work in the streets, we work in the suites, we work in the ballot box, we march, we protest, we push, we organize. What we don't do is we don't ever quit. So thank you all so much for showing those numbers, and we'll show some others and put them out later. But I want to close because we promised folk we wouldn't be on over an hour and 15 minutes. And I want to close here with two things. One is a reading from Dr. King, and I read it every chance I get because I want people to get it so that they won't ever just succumb. Dr. King said in 1965, the end of the Selma to Montgomery March, it may be said of the Reconstruction era that the Southern aristocracy took the world and gave the poor white man Jim Crow. He gave him Jim Crow, and when his wrinkled stomach cried out for the food that his empty pockets could not provide, he fed him Jim Crow. Jim Crow. Over and over again, he gave him Jim Crow. He ate a psychological bird that told him that no matter how bad off he was, at least he was a white man. When his undernourished children cried out for the necessities that his low wages could not provide, he showed them Jim Crow signs on the buses and the stores, on the streets, and on the public building. And his children, too, learned to feed upon Jim Crow. Listen to this. We must know it was the threat of the free exercise of the ballot by the Negro and the masses of white people alike, especially the poor, that resulted in the establishment of a segregated society. They segregated Southern money from poor whites. They segregated Southern morals from the rich whites. They segregated Southern churches from Christianity. They segregated Southern minds from honest thinking, and they segregated the Negro from everything. That's what happened when the poor Negro and the white masses of the South threatened to unite and build a great society to shift the economic architecture of the nation, created by a society of justice where none would prey upon the weakness of the others, a society of plenty where greed and poverty would be done away with, a society of brotherhood where every man would respect the dignity and worth of human personalities. Division was created because of the fear of the exercise of the ballot and the vote by poor and low wealth and white voters, and we could say Asian and Latinos and others. Last thing I want you to hear tonight as we close is that the tactics we see have their roots in the states' rights movement that began before the Civil War, and with the fight for laws to maintain slavery. The Confederates militarized it. Listen, the KKK added violence. Plessy versus Ferguson legalized it. It was picked up and mobilized and continued by the likes of Strom Thurmond and Barry Goldwater, continued by George Wallace. It was made an extremist Southern strategy by Kevin Phillips and Lee Atwater. It was picked up by Pat Buchanan. It was picked up by moderate and extremist proponents of trickle-down economics and insurrectionists and religious nationalists. Intentional polarization to divide people and depress them and to keep them from voting. And today we now see a new group of insurrectionists and religious nationalists have charismatized it, pushed it, and with media savvy, they have invested in it with billions of dollars. And they're backing the greedy elites and those who treat corporations like people and people like things. And they know that the one power that can overcome that is for the masses of poor and low wealth and low wage voters of every race, creed, color, kind, and sexuality joining together and voting their demands theirs and not just support. Finally, Nika Giovanni said this about the vote. She said it's not a hug or a toy at Christmas. It's not a colored egg at Easter or a bunny hopping across the meadow. It's a vote. Saying you are a citizen. Though sometimes it's traveling and sometimes it's no. A no, it can be made of a male or female. It can be right or left. It can disagree. But I am a citizen. I should be able to vote from prison. I should be able to vote from the battlefield. I should be able to vote when I get my driver's license. I should be able to vote when I can purchase a gun, when I'm in the hospital, or in an old folks' home. If I need a ride to the polling place, I am a citizen. I must be able to vote. Folks were lynched for it, shot for it. Communities were gerrymandered because of it. Folks who believed in the Constitution were lied to, burned out, bought, and sold because they believed in it. They agreed that all men and women are created equal. Folks vote to make us free. It's not a cookie or a piece of cake, but it's the icing. It is so sweet. Good for us, my country, 'tis of thee. And hearing those things, I wrote something. Voting is a guaranteed way to shift public policy if the masses come together. Extremists know this. If they didn't know the power of voting to shift public policy, to shift who's in office, extremists would not be fighting so hard to take it. Nobody would be fighting this hard to take it if it was not important. They want the lobbyists to have a vote. They want the greedy to be able to vote. But we have to know that it is power if we use it. And we must unleash this power. It does no good to have it and not use it. And for me as a person of faith, America didn't give me the right to vote. The Democratic Party didn't give me the right to vote. The Republican Party didn't give me the right to vote. No president gave me the right to vote. The right to vote is a divine gift. From creation beginning, my faith teaches that God gave human beings the right to choose. We have a right that the plants don't have. We have a right that most animals don't have. Our moral consciousness, our ability to choose consistently. And anybody who tries to suppress your vote is suggesting that you are not a person, that you're not made in the image of God. And you should never assist them in that assessment of you. And when you choose not to use it, then you assist them in the assessment that your issues and your needs, your concerns don't really matter. For God's sake, we cannot allow those who believe that public policy from a moral perspective ought to be used to take women's right to vote, to have an abortion, right to choose. Those who believe that they ought to stop the LGBT community. Those who believe that the way to solve everything is to give tax cuts to the wealthy and keep living wages from the poor away. Those who believe that the way to protect our society is to have more guns and not more grace. And those who believe that it is the power of the massiveness of the military that keeps us safe rather than the massiveness of our heart and our concern for one another. We cannot let that perspective vote more than us. They can vote. We can't. We're not saying they can't vote. Everybody has that right. But we cannot let that perspective have more say than us as far as it is concerning who sits in the Congress, in the Senate, in the governor's mansions, in the legislatures, in the school boards, in the city councils, on the county commissioners. No, we won't be silent. We won't be unheard. And we will not be an unvoting movement, we will unleash the power that so many have fought for and died for, and that so many today want to take from us through various forms of suppression, because they know the power we have when we join together. And so forward together, not one step back. Miss Allen, if you're still there, I know you all had a special video you wanted to play. I think it was a different way of phrasing this little light of mine, picking up the spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer, but putting it in the 21st century. And if you all have that, I want you to put that on. Kate and Zig are putting some things in the chat. We're not through, y'all. This is just a rally. This is just to say, let's run all the way through the tape. Let's push all the way. Go get everybody you know. Tweet everybody you know. Call everybody you know. Email everybody you know. Holler. If you're up in the hollows of the mountain, holler in the mountains. If you're on the street corner, say something there too. Say it over and over and over again. If we ever needed to vote for democracy and justice, we sure do need to vote right now. Right now. Right now. God bless you. Forward together, not one step back. Let us hear a little bit of that song before we leave.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This here voice of mine is for singing songs of freedom. This here voice of mine is for singing songs of freedom. This here voice of mine is for singing songs of freedom. Sing them loud, sing them loud, sing them loud. These here hands of mine are for voting tyrants out. These here hands of mine are for voting tyrants out. These here hands of mine are for voting tyrants out. So vote them out, vote them out, vote them out. These here feet of mine march me to the polling station. These here feet of mine march me to the polling station. These here feet of mine march me to the polling station. Here I go, here I go, here I go. Yeah, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. See, this here voice of mine is for singing songs of freedom. This here voice of mine is for singing songs of freedom. This here voice of mine is for singing songs of freedom. Sing them loud, sing them loud, sing them loud. Vote them out, vote them out, vote them out. Vote them tyrants out, vote them out, vote them out. See, here you go, here you go, here I go. And let it shine, let it shine.